Hey guys, Charlie here. Welcome back to Conquering Kerbal Space Program. And today, we're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff. This episode's got a lot of stuff happening, so let's just get started. This rocket is a material kits delivery rocket. This rocket is supposed to deliver a whole bunch of material kits and specialized parts to the Minmus base so that we can get our initial start in our construction process. It is also going to have this little container up here in this little service bay, which has the mallets and the stakes that I forgot to send up before. So this rocket is going up into space, and we are going to try to launch this rocket at a 6-degree inclination. Now, for a better understanding of what this rocket does and how we're going to be launching this and all that stuff, you can check out one of the previous live streams where we were brainstorming this. I was practicing, essentially, trying to launch into Minmus's inclination. So if you're interested in, how would I launch my rocket so that I don't have to correct my inclination before I go to Minmus, well, that was what that stream was all about, and that's what this rocket is doing here. So I go ahead and I complete the burn, circularize my orbit, and I am just 0.8 degrees difference between my orbit's inclination and Minmus. That's a pretty close success, I think. And as it turns out, pretty much the place I want to put my maneuver node is right on the ascending node. So I'm actually going to be able to transfer to Minmus with no inclination change whatsoever, which saves me critical delta V. Okay, so back at our base module, I've noticed a problem, and that is that we have 5 meters per second remaining in this stage. 5 meters per second is kind of crap. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do anything with 5 meters per second. Now, the design of this was that I would deconstruct all of the parts that are in this lower stage, turn them into material kits, and then take those with me to Minmus. I have my material kit storage that's coming with me in this module. They're not full. They're less than half full. So the hope here is that I can deconstruct all of these parts and fill up the material kits in the tanks so I don't have to waste anything. My miscalculation, however, comes in where the large fuel tanks are actually worth a considerable amount more material kits per tank than I originally anticipated. In fact, I'm actually out of material kit storage before I even start to deconstruct these big tanks. The engine takes up the remaining space, and I'm left with basically wasting the material kits from these large tanks. Knowing that for the future, I will make sure to just bring empty material kit tanks in the future. That'll probably help. However, deconstructing that stuff and revealing the engine that was underneath there doesn't really help me in terms of the fuel or the lacking fuel situation. We still have very, very little delta V remaining in this stage, and in order to solve that problem, I'm going to transfer fuel from the frontmost tank of this craft all the way to the backmost tank. That's going to give me enough delta V to at least make my maneuver. I know how much it's going to take to make my circularization around Minmus, so I'm going to put enough fuel in that stage so that I can perform just that. And with the circularization around Minmus complete, it's time to get Alejandro B. Kerman out and to deconstruct the remaining parts at the bottom of the craft, which again should have been turned into material kits and stored, but we are still full. So the goal now that we're circularized is to actually separate these two units. One of the modules is actually going to go down to the surface of Minmus right now, while the other is going to rendezvous with the space plane. The hope here is that I can take one of the modules and grab those additional supplies that I couldn't control before and get to the surface. I still want those on the surface, so I'm going to take one of these modules and go ahead and grab those supplies and bring those down to the surface. The other module that's not rendezvousing with the plane, well, that can go down to the base right now. Because I have the experience of bringing down the previous modules to Minmus' surface, I have these wheels configured to where I can independently control the steering and motor direction. This is going to make it to where I can configure these on the surface and make it much easier to control it and bring it into its destination. And this is something that I really like about Kerbal Space Program. It's not necessarily unique to Kerbal Space Program, but one thing that I just really constantly admire about this game is that you can adapt and conform how you do things based on previous experience. You are constantly learning new ways and new things to do. And because you're constantly learning, you're also constantly improving. Even someone like me that has over 1,000 hours in this game is still getting better at little tiny things that they've never done before. And this kind of thing is really going to continue throughout this entire series because I still myself have not visited the vast majority of the bodies around the Kerbal solar system. This Minmus base for me is also kind of a beta because while I have experience using all of the different mods that I have installed, I've never really came and brought them all together into a campaign like this. So I understand the basics behind it. I understand all the rules and sort of what resources convert into what and how much of certain things I'm going to need to withstand a certain number of Kerbal. I know all those things, but I've never actually done it before. And so this sort of feels like, to me, sort of like a medical student who has gone to college and learned a whole bunch of really complicated things, but he's never actually been in and actually practiced in a hospital before. I know that's a really terrible analogy, and all of you who are doctors don't cringe. I understand your job is way harder than this game, but I hope the metaphor at least resonated with you. And if it did, awesome, because basically what I feel like about this is that this is my first day on the job, if you will, in terms of base construction and trying to get things right. In all honesty, I actually have a lot less confidence in my Duna base that I've already sent and is already orbiting Duna. I actually have a lot less confidence in that base design than I did when I launched it, because I'm sort of playing around with these new USI tools, and also because I built that base when we had TAC life support. I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen with it. I think we can adapt. I think we can grow and adjust for it, and it won't be a complete waste or anything. But I definitely am getting so much more experience in how this all the stuff sort of comes together, and it's going to be really cool to see how I'm going to put together bases on. Really, the planets I'm most concerned about are Moho and Elu. I mean, Elu because of its distance away from Kerbin and because of the fact that it's now one of Sarnas's moons. You guys may have joined me for my live stream series where I have been taking an SSTO to Sarnas and trying to set up a satellite network with remote tech around it. That's been fun, and it's not yet successful, but we're going to get there. But that has opened my eyes again. That has implemented the practice that I needed to understand what is ahead, to understand what's going to happen. And that's Kerbal Space Program. It's this experience. You just jump in and you do things, and it excites you, and it makes you think there's more possibilities. And man, I just love games that do that. So what I've got to do here is I've got to get this module into the cargo bay of the plane, and I need to do that because if you remember, just a little bit ago, I had to transfer fuel from the front tank to the back tank to make sure I had enough for the maneuver, and as a result of that, I'm not actually entirely sure I can land this thing on Minmus with the fuel I have. Luckily, there's a compatible docking port on the plane, so we're going to try and fit this thing into the cargo bay. It's a pretty tight fit. The wheels tend to hit the edges a little bit, and the docking ports really don't want to line up and actually fully dock because I think it's because these batteries are in the way. So we need our trusty engineer, Alejandro, to get out there and take care of those batteries and break them out of our way. Oh yeah, watch the master at work. These hands are working with surgical precision decommissioning these parts. Take notes, cadets, this is how you do it. So me in this situation decide to have a little bit of a fight, but eventually this thing comes around and sees things my way and lets me dock to it. So I'm gonna take the fuel out of the plane now, put it in this craft, de-dock, and then go get those supplies so we can get them down to the surface. So I want to preserve as much fuel as possible here, so I'm going to use the monopropellant engines pretty much the entire time to get myself accelerated and change everything. I have plenty of monopropellant on the thing, but I'm short on fuel, so even to the initial meetup with this thing, I'm going to use monopropellant. When I get to the supply crate, I notice I actually can't keep it still because it's out of electricity. So Alejandro, with your expert skills, go get me the sunlight. And the hard part's over. We have capture. So yeah, all we got to do now is take all this stuff down to the surface. You guys have kind of seen this before, so let's just speed it up. And we have touchdown on the surface of Minmus. And so now the next thing to do is to wheel this thing over in position between the two modules on the base and get it in line. It's going to be right in front of the agricultural module. We'll hook it up just like we did the other one. And as Alejandro connects the last unit, the base is now fully assembled. Now, it's not fully deployed. We don't have enough material kits to fully deploy everything that we need to do that. So we're going to have to go back to our material kits craft, which is on its way, and we're going to have to bring that down to the surface as well. So here it is. This is our delivery vehicle to deliver material kits and specialized parts to the base. It's been on its way to Minmus for quite some time. We'll go ahead and time accelerate, get ourselves there. We're going to do our circularization burn. You guys have seen this all before. The material kits that are in this should be enough so that we don't have to deliver any more to the base. We can kind of get our own stuff made up here. We're supposed to use these material kits to build the resource storage containers so that our base can store raw materials, and then we can use the workshop parts that's already on the base to generate and create more material kits to build other things. That is the intention. So I actually almost forgot about Andre as well. He's been sitting in this plane orbiting Minmus for quite some time, and I kind of forgot about him a little bit, and I needed to get him back to Kerbin because he's kind of all alone in the plane, and the supplies that were, on the plane for everyone to use, those are now gone off the plane now. So limited life support duration available for him, if you will. It's not a huge deal. He's just one Kerbal, and there's enough supplies in the cabin and stuff to keep him occupied for a lot of time. But habitation-wise, he's only got 25 days left before he becomes a tourist. And before I forget about him, I'm going to set up a maneuver and get this plane on its way back to Kerbin so that I don't have to worry about that. Material kits unit touches down, and I don't really have to do anything. I could just leave it here, but for some reason I think, what the hell? Let's just do something different. So I'm going to tip this thing over on its side so it's pointing at the base, And then I'm going to just get it closer to the base so it's not so far away. I don't know, I feel like if the Kerbals, you know, in real life or whatever, we'd probably want this material kit storage to be closer to the base with us, so that's how I'm going to do it. This part right here is kind of where the intention for the mission, the objective and the goals of the mission, I don't want to say it falls apart, because it doesn't really fall apart, but I definitely made some mistakes. Let's take a look. So everything kind of starts off fine. I get Alejandro out of the base so he can go over to the other craft and start breaking down the pieces that we don't need of it. This includes the engine, of course, and the fuel tank and like a lot of the other stuff that's there. And the reason for that is because the base has material kit storage capacity. I just didn't have any material kits to put in that capacity. So now that this ship is here, we can actually break down a lot of this stuff. We don't need it anymore. Also, inside the service bay here, we have the mallet and the stakes, and those are supposed to be taken out of there, and we're going to set the stakes up on the ground so that we can sort of designate a location to manufacture stuff on the surface. Stuff is pretty straightforward. I was going to just use one stake, but I've been told by a couple of people in the past that setting it up in more of like a square pattern and sort of using 4 stakes is supposedly better. I'm not entirely sure what that does, how that solves any problems or what problems there was to begin with, but I'm going to do it anyway just because I don't want any complications, and if the other people are saying that there's going to be complications with 1 stake, I'd rather just use 4. They're super cheap, they cost nothing, they weigh nothing, and it doesn't take any really much longer time to actually put 4 stakes down, so I'd like to imagine, though, that this kind of looks a little bit like, as I'm setting this up, I'm thinking to myself of, like, the days when I went, you know, camping in the summer, and I went over to, like, my uncle's house and stuff, and they have horseshoe pits, you know? I don't know if you guys ever play horseshoes, but I get the feeling of playing horseshoes when I set this up just like this, and I'm going, yeah, man, horseshoes on Minmus. That would be an adventure, wouldn't it? I bet that would be very difficult to do, horseshoes on Minmus. I mean, how lightly would you have to throw the thing? I don't even know if you could do it. I want to see that happen. I want to see horseshoes on Minmus. Somebody make it happen. So it's in this whole thing where I'm thinking about horseshoes, where I'm also distracted a little bit from the mission. And this is the part where I start making mistakes. Now, it's not like I crashed anything. It's not like I broke anything. But you're going to notice, well, I kind of sent Alejandro on a mission that maybe wasn't supposed to happen yet. He's going to go back to the Minmus base here. He's going to kind of hover around these modules that aren't deployed, and because I've got the material kits there now, I think to myself, hey, we've got supplies to do this now. We could totally just, you know, deploy these habitation modules now and make sure our Kerbals don't turn into tourists very fast because they'll have more habitation. That sounds like something we should really do right now instead of doing it when I had planned to do it, which is much later from now. So, yeah, I kind of opened up these habitation modules. If you're not following me and you're not really sure why this is a bad thing, each one of the habitation modules requires 8,000 material kits to open. So, I kind of brought a whole bunch of material kits here, hoping to build the storage containers for the raw materials so that we could create more material kits. This is like 101 stuff. This is the basic purpose of this thing. And for whatever reason, my mind spaced, and I opened up these habitation modules, and I didn't even realize I'd made a mistake until it was already too late. Like, I opened up all these things, and I opened up the agricultural module thing here, and I was just like, yeah, cool, this base is coming together, it's really awesome. Crap, I just remembered. And that's kind of how it happened, and mistakes were made. So I'm gonna have to probably ship another shipment of material kits up here. That's gonna cost me quite a few 100,000 pesos or dollars or pesos, whatever currency you use. It's going to cost a whole bunch of that, and you know, it is what it is. It's not like it's going to be detrimental to the entire game or anything. It's not going to break the whole mission or anything, but it is going to create a need for a little bit of extra time, and it's going to create a need for just another trip to Minmus that I didn't anticipate having to make before. It's completely my fault. Everything always happens. If a mission's going too smoothly, you got to do something to screw it up, right? So in a bit of desperation, I start breaking down parts on the base. I mean, I was going to do this anyway. The base is already down. There's a lot of parts on the base modules and stuff that don't need to be there anymore. And if we can somehow reduce the part count on the base, we can improve the performance, you know, the frame rates and all that stuff. So I was going to do it anyway, but I started doing it right away because I was like, I want to get as many material kits back as possible. And the efforts are really futile at this point because there's just nothing I can do to replenish enough material kits to actually do this. But I started doing it anyway because I needed it. And I've also spent a considerable amount of time sort of playing around with different designs for the containers and sort of trying to figure out how I want to get them to Minmus and sort of how I want to position them and where I want to put them and all this other stuff that's been considered. And I've been doing a lot of that stuff off camera. It's not like in part of the episode or anything, but there's stuff happening behind the scenes too for planning in the future missions and stuff. So I really want to thank you guys for watching. I really want to thank you guys for your patience. I know it's a long period of time between episodes, and honestly, that's happening for all my video series right now. I just can't get to them as much as I'd like to. Plus, I've been distracted, and I'm really loving it. I don't really consider it a distraction. I'm just having a ball. I'm blast with Gwent. So it's been fun. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Let me know. Subscribe if you want more. And I'm going to try it. Again, I know I keep saying this every time, but I say it honestly every time. I truly mean it every time I say it. It's just adult life, you know, adult life. I want to go back to my kid life. Sometimes I do. Take it easy, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.